I had to do a lot of things to get out of this because I refused to let the I refused to be a victim. I wanted to be a victor. And I didn't want the abusers to have victory in my life. I didn't want to know that I just threw my hands up and gave up.
On a business in the city, come to the Wave Show. No time a Big Willie, come to the Wave Show. You got a message for the people, come to the Wave Show. You could be black, white, red, blue, come to the Wave Show. It's all love, we wanna meet you. Come to the Wave Show, come to the Wave Show, come to the Wave Show.
So hello, my name is Jamal Smith. I want to welcome you guys back to the Wave Show. Today we got a cool guest coming out. She has a really unique story, and she has a new book that's coming out April 24th. And I want to give her the chance to introduce herself. Your name?
Tonya.
Tonya, awesome, Tonya. It's nice to have you coming out.
Thank you.
So what I kind of want to do is start off and ask you, what is your background?
I'm a Canadian-born. Jamaican is my background.
Mm-hmm.
And both my parents are from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's my background.
Nice. And what was it like during your adolescence growing up?
During my adolescence growing up it was okay. I was a reasonably angry teenager. I was more of a tomboy, and I had a lot of anger, I think, because I suppressed some things that I was facing in life. And so if I got into fights, it was never good. So I tried not to get into fights because I had this deep anger within.
Mm-hmm. And that anger, where do you kind of feel like it stemmed from?
I feel it stemmed from going through childhood abuse, childhood sexual abuse.
And having to suppress it and go on out there and act like, everything's perfect.
Absolutely.
And in reality, it's almost like you're in prison, right? Mentally and emotionally, right? Yeah. And at a very young age, we don't have the right tools to kind of have the right awareness around what's going on.
Exactly.
So, and I also understand, like, aside from that, you also battled an injury.
Yes.
Right? What was it like battling that injury and then saying, you know what, let's move forward, let's get on our feet, and then let's continue to move ahead? Well,
in 2019, I had a contusion. And so right at the time frame where I started writing books in February, and I was like moving towards my dream of writing and singing. And I got injured July 10th, 2020, and I wasn't able to work for about a year before they tried to return me back to work. When I went back to work, I ended up having everything basically acted up again. Mm-hmm. So they had to take me back off work. I went one day, and then I had to go back off work for a period of time. And it was like I couldn't look at my book. I wanted to write it, but I couldn't continue with writing it. So what I ended up doing was I just rested for a while, studied the Bible by listening to it online. Because at first the symptoms were so bad. I had issues with sound, noise sensitivity, light sensitivity, and a bunch of stuff. But now, by about 2020 July, I decided I would try to start writing again so that I could complete the book. And so what ended up happening was I was in a neurologist program. And so doing the neurology program, they were trying to encourage me to write because that's what I enjoyed doing. Yeah. And what it would cause is my level of concentration to be okay, because I was having issues with focus, issues with concentration, issues with remembering things. But I knew I needed to finish my book. So it took over 20 years. And I was just like, I'm not letting it stay any longer than 2020. It's going to be finished before 2020 ends. And it got finished on the 24th of December, 2020.
And how long were you in that I would say like a dark period? How long were you in that period for?
Dealing with the issues from childhood abuse.
Or even just the injuries.
The injuries was like almost 2 years. So I did deal with depression. So I had to be seeing a psychologist, which worked out in the long run because having her there while I was writing this book and having the emotional challenges because here I was digging everything up from my childhood and having to face the reality that some of the ways I respond is as a result of the traumas and the triggers that I faced through childhood abuse. And so my lack of trust, being unable to trust men, and, just always thinking the negative side, not really being able to see the positive as quickly.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think by the time I lost my train of thought.
Well, even looking at that, because you're saying by the time, right?
Yeah.
Right. Looking at the time of 2 years of being in a dark period, right? Looking at it, it was the book that really carried you out that time period.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, where did the passion come from to kind of write a book?
In 1998, when I was in college, I had to do a creative writing piece. So what I ended up doing was writing Behind the Windows of a Smile in a poetry form.
Yeah.
So I wrote basically about going through childhood abuse, but wrote it out more in a creative writing piece. So it was a long poem, and I ended up getting A+++.
Nice.
I didn't read for spelling issues. I didn't want to look back over it.
Yeah.
But what I was doing was pulling out my experience and putting it into a poetic form. And so from that point, I burnt the paper. I was like, I don't want to think about it again. Maybe if I just burn it, I'll never remember. And of course, that didn't work. And just year after year, I just had this pull to, you got to write the book. And I started writing in the library, and I had so much. And then I went into a writer's block.
That happens, right?
Yeah.
And getting yourself out of it, some people don't make it out.
Yeah.
Right? But you yourself made it out.
Yeah.
Right? Again, we're going back to you being resilient.
Absolutely.
Right? And the strength it takes to write a book, right? Some people think you can just get some paper to pen, scribble, and it's done, right? But again, there's the artwork behind it.
Yeah.
And I know you also talked about, being in that dark place and having to get yourself out. It was like you had to teach yourself a skill.
It was that, but it was also my relationship with God. Like realistically, I couldn't do this on my own. And I continue, like in my book, I always bring it back to, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
For me, prayer was one of the things. Like when I had addictions and different things that came as a result of the abuse, I had to pray to God, because I was like, I feel like at times I felt like, why am I like this?
Yeah.
I feel like something's wrong with me. And I was like, God, help me. I hate being like this, or I hate this feeling. And so prayer was something that really helped me to make it through, as well as getting psychological help, going to inner healing retreats. And I had to do a lot of things to get out of this, because I refused to be a victim. I wanted to be a victor. And I didn't want the abusers to have victory in my life. I didn't want to know that I just threw my hands up and gave up. I wanted to overcome. So I was like, I have to do something.
And it's weird. I won't say weird, but it's interesting, because as much as it kind of took away from you, it also gave you strength to now say, okay, now I can spread that awareness for other people and encourage them to have a voice. And what's ironic and unique is you're dropping a book in April.
Yes.
Right? How does that kind of tie into your book?
Well, in April is considered the month of Childhood Sexual Abuse Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, when I wrote this book, I had intended to release it in February.
Yeah.
And then somehow I was like, okay, I'll just do it in April, because honestly, it's not going as fast as I wanted to. And I was like, okay, I'll just do it in April. Then my sister goes to me, you know that April is, I could have sworn I seen that April is the month for childhood sexual abuse. I'm like, what? And so I was like, oh my gosh, I know this is so God, because I'm like, I did not plan for it to be released in this month, but it was like perfect timing. It's released in the month where people are trying to get people to be aware of childhood sexual abuse awareness.
And it's what we talked about earlier, right? It's like when you're on the right path and you're doing the right things, opportunities and doors come to you. It's almost like you couldn't even fake it.
Very
right?
true.
You couldn't
Very
even fake
true.
it.
Very true.
And even looking at the month, right? What are some of the stats that kind of, make this month a lot more, that is something that people should connect to and actually listen to?
Well, For me, one of the things I see that April is a month of new beginnings. So for me, I think I believe it's a new thing for us to promote awareness. I never knew about it, and in our community, I'm sure a lot of people did not know that this is the month for childhood sexual abuse awareness. And so I wanted to let people know that this is something that's pretty much like an epidemic. There's like 1 in 3 girls that go through abuse, and there's 1 in 4 boys that go through abuse. It's also said that it's not usually a stranger. It's usually 80% of the time, it's the perpetrator is someone that your children know.
Oh.
So whether it's someone in their community, someone in their family, it's usually someone they know and that's trusted. And so for me, it raises awareness, and I'm like, we've got to do something. If the number is that high, it's something that should require direct attention.
It should be addressed, right?
Yeah, it has to be addressed.
And even looking at like you doing it through your book, I
Yeah.
understand that you wrote, or you were also a co-partner in other books also.
Yes, I was a co-writer.
Can you tell us a
in
little
other
bit
books.
about those ones too? Just a little bit?
So I was a co-author in the book called The Process. It's a relationship book.
The Process. This is it
And
right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it's a relationship book, so it talks about what love really is,
Not bad.
what love really is, and how God wants us to be in our relationships and how we relate to each other.
Yeah.
Kind of like waiting till marriage kind of stuff. And,
Yeah. And what's the other book?
and
that
the
you
other
wrote?
one is called The Struggle is Real, Confessions of a Single Mother. And
I like that title.
yeah. And that was actually the first book I wanted to be in, but she started out with The Process, Farah Hodgson. And she started out with The Process, but then when she told me The Struggle is Real, I was still recovering from the concussion. But what happened was I had already written out my script. So I knew what I wanted to write from like earlier that year. So I was like, okay, you know what? I have the paper.
Yeah.
And so I was able to kind of get my sister, she helps me, my brother's wife, like she helps me with editing, like making sure everything's on track
That's
and stuff
good.
like that. So because I had the concussion, she played a very important role in helping me to finish my chapter in The Struggle is Real, and just to make sure it was flowing, because realistically with the concussion, sometimes I thought I wrote it in the right sequence, but I had it, all the right information was there, but I had it slightly out of sequence because I wasn't concentrating and focusing as well as I would want to. So I was having a lot of cognitive challenges.
You see, and I like the power of the unity, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we think we need 100 people to support us.
Yeah.
When in reality, sometimes all we need is just one. Right?
Just one,
And even
yeah.
if you're looking at it, some people would say, you know, I had a concussion, you know, this is all the more reason why maybe I shouldn't write a book. But here we are, right? Again, using it as strength to get through the moment in our life,
That
right?
was it. It was driving force behind. It's either I'm going to give up and be depressed, or I'm going to do something to keep positive. And that was what kept me positive writing.
Being proactive about it, right?
Absolutely.
And I understand also you have audio? You have
Yes.
an audio book?
Yes.
Or one of them are on audio?
I believe that Farah's doing the audiobook for The Struggle is Real.
Yeah.
And I know for my new book that will be coming up on the 24th,
Nice.
I will have an audiobook, ebook, and a regular book.
Right, so and even looking at Audible, right? Audible has kind of changed the whole industry.
Yes.
Right, can
yes.
you talk a little bit about audio and the value it brings? And for people who would like to, you know, promote their books on Audible, what's a way that they can do that?
Okay. So audiobooks now are probably going to be the new next thing. We have ebooks. Ebooks have been around for a while, and regular books for a while. But if we've noticed since the pandemic, we've had a lot more things technology based.
Yeah.
So with the audiobook, it's hands-free. You can upload it onto your phone, your device, whatever, and you're able to listen. So if somebody is unable to read, they can still listen to a book, and they
Yeah.
can still learn through listening to a book. And
that is
so
interesting.
absolutely. So it's a benefit not only to us to be hands-free if we want to listen to it in the car, or we don't really have the time to sit down and read the book, but we can put it into our car and we can listen to it. So it's hands-free, and we're still getting the information and
Yes.
still being able to support the person by buying a book, but an audiobook.
Right.
And so I believe that's the new big trend that's coming in. On Amazon, they got Audible, and And yeah.
So Tonya, let me ask.
Yes.
What you're really doing is you're encouraging people hop on the trend and the wave.
Absolutely.
Absolutely from now before it gets watered down.
Exactly. It's the new norm for us
Yes.
now. It's the
And,
new
and, and
norm.
audibles make sense, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at, like you said, some people who have challenges with reading,
Absolutely.
right? You have now someone who's talking to you. And again, it goes back to what type of learner are you?
Yes.
Some people are the physical, kinesthetic learners,
Yes.
and others need that auditory reminder, right? Just in the back of their head.
Exactly.
And looking at websites, I understand you created a website also.
I did.
So as an author, what does having a website, what value does that bring to you as an author?
Well, a website makes it look definitely more professional.
Yes, I like that.
You know, someone has somewhere to go, they can read more about you, they can access the stuff that you sell. And what I find, it's like having a store and it's online. Like we're so used to the stores, the mother and father brand stores where,
Yes.
it's a physical building. But now we're in the midst of a pandemic. So it's like, okay, how can I think outside of the box of my norm? I've never been absolutely tech savvy. So making this website was like, oh my Lord.
A huge eye-opener.
it was a lot of work. It took a lot of energy. It does take money because you have to pay to maintain it and so that everything flows well. But what I found from it, it keeps a log of who buys from you. It keeps so everything's kind of tallied for you. So by the time the tax year is done, you got all your money right there.
That's a
you got all your
big
customers.
point. And you can track your inventory.
Absolutely.
Right,
Everything.
you can see who's publishing, and
Everything.
even if you look at the quality of people that's buying your books. So even if you're looking at the quality of people that's buying your books, right, this is now saying, okay, now I can have a chance to connect with them, and they have a chance to kind of get to know me a little bit more, and that kind of encourages people to want to read your book, right?
Yes.
So that's a big point. Is there anything else around that you can kind of give us?
Also, you could sell other things on there. I didn't know all about this, but I got a Wix website.
Oh.
So if you want, you could also do drop shipping stuff on there. If you want to sell teacups, you want to sell t-shirts, there's so many other things you can sell on there. So you can add it to your book sales so that you can have whatever. Also, it will allow you, if you provide services, you can let people know what services you provide and the prices and all of that stuff there without the person having to call you. They can get all the information on your website once you put it
That
there.
is very interesting. I'm taking notes like you have no idea. Right? Because I want to write a book one day, right?
Nice.
But even looking now at the publishing side of things,
Yes.
what was it like getting it published?
Publishing. I had to look around. So I looked around at some of the big publishing companies, and I believe there was also Friesen Press, but they're so pricey.
Yeah.
And then there was another lady, the lady Farah, who did this book. Her company is called, oh Lord, I can't remember.
Hopefully it's here somewhere.
Daughter of the King Publishing, right? Daughter of the King Publishing. So her price, it was okay, but I was like, it was still a little bit much for me. So I reached out to the Knowledge Bookstore, and when I reached out to them, I spoke to the owner, Sean, and I said to him, I'm looking for a publisher. So he told me about WTLI, which is a publishing company, and what in the long run I did, I checked her out and everything, and she was affordable. What I also appreciated about her was that she's a traditional publishing company.
Oh, wow.
And also a Black publisher as well. So what I decided, I'm going to work with her because Sean Libbard has been selling in an Afrocentric bookstore. He has his Afrocentric bookstore in Brampton.
Yeah.
And he's been selling there for a long time. And so I was like, okay, I want somebody who's reputable. And if he sent me to her, she's got to be reputable. And what I found with her, she does Ingram Spark, Amazon, so she's connected with those different companies so you can get your book into other people's hands who don't know you.
Yeah.
So if they go in the search engine, search up certain topics like childhood abuse or empowerment or, whatever it is, self-improvement, self-love or whatever, they Google it, they come across your book. If they like it, right there, you got a customer.
Easily.
And you didn't have to tell them about it.
Right.
They just had to search up a topic and your book, it happened to be one of the topics in your book, and they like your book, and
And
so,
that was it.
yeah.
Okay, so and that's a good nugget
Yes.
to know. So, right? Tonya, what I want to ask you next is, we understand the process of publishing a book. What's it like getting it illustrated?
Getting it illustrated through the publishing company that I did, I realized it's more money. So each page costs a certain amount. So whether it's $100, 60 something, it just depends on how detailed your artistry, how detailed the work is that you want illustrated. But that, like, if you, the more pictures you have in a book is definitely the more money you're going to pay for it. So if you have just standard the cover and the back, that you're not paying as much. But the more pictures you have is the more money. So
And why is the cost, why is it like that?
I believe because, like, for the publishing company, or at least with the company that I'm with, they have to do they have someone that does the illustration. So differently from her that does all the book work and all that, she has someone that does the illustration. So
That's interesting.
yeah.
And you can pretty much go to the same person for illustration and for publishing.
You can, but most of these companies that I've seen, they have other people that do it. So it's like things are contracted out to different people. So it's a network
Yeah.
that builds the publishing company.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's good teaching, right? And that's something for everyone to kind of be aware of as
Yeah.
they're on this journey of writing a book. And even alongside that, what's the one advice that you would give people who do want to write a book? And what's the one, big caution that they should look out for as they're writing a book?
One of the biggest advice I would give people is to read the fine lines, to the agreements, and go for it. So that's more than one thing, but I would say go for it. So anybody who's thinking about writing a book, go for it.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest things that I find in writing a book, anything that you write, it doesn't go away. So say you die later, it becomes a legacy and a heirloom to your family. This book that you've written with your thoughts and with your views and stuff like that, it also becomes history to the generations to come. So for me, your book outlives you. So when you're gone, your book outlives you. It's almost like a singer. When you think about Bob Marley, he wrote songs, he sang songs, and those songs have lived on and have just continued to touch generation to generation. So I would say go for it. And the main caution I would give people is just to be aware of the different royalties that have to be paid out. So when you're signing your agreements, double check how much does the publishing company take? How much, for example, if you do Amazon, how much does Amazon get? What's their cut? So that you're able to figure out what is the amount that I'm going to take away. My example with my book, if I'm doing with Amazon or Chapters, Barnes and Nobles, these companies, they take a cut, my publishing company gets a percentage, I get a percentage. So realistically, your book might be for 20 something dollars and you might be walking away with $14. Also, it could be like $22 and you're walking away from Amazon with like $4 to $5.
Yeah.
So it really depends on who's selling your book with you, the team that you're working with. But with Amazon, because it's a high traffic place, they have to charge a certain amount for their shipping and everything. So
And these are some good points, right? And
Yes.
you said something that we really hold to a lot of value on this show, and that's the team aspect.
absolutely.
Right? If someone wants to go write a book, what does that team that they should surround themselves look like?
You want to find somebody who's going to work with you, that's going to make your book a priority, and to make you know that they're going to give you quality work. So at the end of the day, if I go to my publishing company and I don't feel comfortable to say that, the spacing is not right, or you got some mistakes here and there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to want to keep coming to you if you're not going to try to make it work well. But if you're a company that's willing to, okay, you have this problem, okay, oh my gosh, there's something else, oh geez, there's something else, but you're willing to fix it and not make me feel like, oh my gosh, why do you keep coming back? It's fixed, whatever. It will make people want to keep coming back to that publishing company. So please, making your customer a priority and serving quality work is one of the things that I would say is the best thing in publishing for me.
These are big points, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what I want to ask you next. So let me ask you a question. When it comes to your book that you're putting out there, what's the one main takeaway, or let's just say one. What are a couple main takeaways that you want people to get from your book?
So from my book, Behind the Windows of a Smile, the main takeaways that I want people to know is that you're not alone. I want you to know that you can be a victor instead of a victim. And I also want to create awareness so that people know that they know how to deal with the situation. They know how to recognize things in the certain things that come with being sexually abused. I want parents to be able to have tools, like example, just teaching your kids. These parts are your body parts, your private parts, and no one's supposed to touch it. Unless you're taking a bath or unless you're changing your diaper, no one's supposed to touch you there. Creating that communication amongst parents and their children where they're able to say, Mom, I don't feel comfortable, or someone did this to me, and the parents actually believe them. It's very important to build that closeness with your children so that at the end of the day, they trust you and they know they can come to you as a parent with anything. But if you don't build that open line of communication, then they're not able to come to you. And so my biggest thing is to create awareness and just to help people to know they're not alone. They can overcome the traumas and the effects of childhood sexual abuse.
That's huge. So I'm sure a lot of people are gonna want to get more out of you, get more out of your story, because it sounds like you have a lot to teach people.
Absolutely.
Right? And through your lived experience, I know, like, even if you go to like an AA meeting
Yes.
for alcoholism, they normally have someone who was an old alcoholic
Absolutely.
teaching those meetings and helping people to get through that. So I commend you for the work that you do.
Thank
and
you.
just for our viewers, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Tonya King, TonyaKing.
Yep.
And you can find me on Instagram at Tonya C. King, TonyaCking. And you can also access my website at www.freedom2beme.com. So that is www.freedomtobme.com. So it's just the letter B for Freedom to Be Me.
And there you go. She spelled it out for you, so there's no
Thank you.
excuses. Right? And we understand that you used to sing, right?
Yes.
So here at the Wave Show, we love to showcase talent, right? So we're going to ask you, can you give us something, a little vocals? And you know what? I'll even put my mask on as you take yours off.
All right. Okay. Lord, help me to think of a song. Okay. Okay, I'll think of a childhood song. There's only one way, and it is God's way. There's only one truth, it's in His Word. There's only one life, it's lived in Jesus. One way, one truth, one life lived in the Lord. Thank you.
Hey, we love that. Was beautiful. Very
Thank you.
beautiful.
I
Thank
tried.
you. Thank you. So everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. We love the support. And again, check out some of Tonya's work. And remember, stay wavy.
Come to the Wave Show. Come to the Wave Show. Come to the Wave Show.